What was it like to be a teammate of 18, 19-year-old Eli Manning?
Big Easy was young and immature, like probably any 18-year-old, 19-year-old young man is. And so for him, it was about learning.
This is Stacking the Box with NFL insider Matt Verderame and Mark Carman. Welcome into Stacking the Box, a big show today. Deuce McAllister, the two-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion from the New Orleans Saints, coming up on the show. Will DeWitt from the Chicago Audible. We will talk some Justin Fields. Verderame, you want to pay me that money right now, by the way, as far as your Fields bet, which is just one of the worst bets in the history of football?
Not a chance. But we talk about that. We talk about Kirk Cousins, and we talk about another NFC North quarterback who got a lucrative extension offer, turned it down. We have a heated discussion about how that should play out.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is coming right up on the podcast with an absolute, consistent report, I guess, from Adam Schefter, but a new one this week that he turned down a contract offer, which would have made him the highest paid player in football, highest paid quarterback, which actually, that report just reemerging, if you will. So we'll talk some Aaron Rodgers. And then at the back end of the podcast, Verderame had an amazing vacation where apparently he stayed in a cabin with 10 people with no air conditioning and somehow survived.
It's a gross exaggeration, but we get into all that and plenty more.
Yeah, it's all coming up. Thank you for checking out Stacking the Box. We love when you give us a rating, subscribing, and passing it along to your friends. It is our career. It is on the line. So anything you can do for us. Verderame, would you like to beg to the people?
Please, for the love of God, 5-star rating, subscribe. If you don't do it, my kids go hungry.
Exactly. Deuce McAllister is awesome, too. And a reminder that the Stacking the Box podcast is brought to you by, that's right, Manscaped. The Olympics, Euros, baseball, major championship, concerts, it's all happening this summer. You know what you don't want? You don't want to be unkempt. You want things to be looking good down there. You're going out on a day in the summertime, you're at the beach, you want things to be as they
taken care of. That's
exactly right. This is the time to get yourself the Performance Package 4.0 from Manscaped. They like to call it the weed whacker ear. They got the nose hair trimmer too, which by the way is very much needed. The crop preserver, the ball deodorant, the crop reviver. You get the 2 free gifts, the performance boxer briefs, which I'm actually wearing right now. Verderame, have you ever worn the boxer briefs? They're really good.
I have not, but I'm going to have to.
Okay, it's this nice, good, solid, comfortable fit. The Shed travel bag is sweet. Makes you look like a professional when you're going on the road. Check out the brand new Lawnmower 4.0, the 4th generation trimmer featuring the cutting-edge ceramic blade. Be careful, but don't be that careful because the Lawnmower 4.0 is just that sweet. Indeed, go to manscaped.com, put in the promo code FANSIDED20, FANSIDED 20, and you will get 20% off and free shipping once you get that code in there at manscaped.com. Achieve public glory this year with Manscaped. Verderame, you ready to do it?
Absolutely. Let's get it done.
The Stacking the Box podcast starts right now. Verderame, we start today with the Aaron Rodgers news. He has turned down a 2-year contract extension that could have kept him in Green Bay for 5 years, would have been the highest paid player in the NFL. No, says Big Aaron. 12 seems more in his corner, not willing to come out and play for the Green Bay Packers this year. It seems more and more like he's not playing, which I have a hard time believing, but that's certainly how it seems, at least at this very moment, July 20th, as we record.
Yeah, it does. I don't think this is really new news, though. Right? This has been kind of out there that they offered him more money and an extension, and he wanted no part of it. So, not poo-pooing Adam Schefter's fine work, but he might have even been the one who reported it way back. So, look, this has been kind of out there. Now my question here is, look, if you're Aaron Rodgers, okay, that's fine. You want to turn down that extension? Fine. You don't know what the structure is. You don't know what the guarantees were. That's fine. What is your end game with this? Because you're not playing anywhere else this year. You're not. Now, if you want to say you're going to retire and host Jeopardy, go for it, bro. I don't think anyone on earth believes it's happening. So where does this go now? Like to me, that is the overwhelming question as we sit here a week from camp, right? Like the Packers have not traded him to this point. I highly doubt they're going to panic and trade him tomorrow. So why not just say, look, I'm pissed. I don't want to be here, but I understand I'm under contract. I went to the team. We worked it out. I'm going to play here this year. This will be my last year here. I will give everything I have to my coaches and my teammates and the fans of Green Bay. And after this year, we will amicably work out a situation where I am traded. Because at this point, in my opinion, that is the best way for him to go.
I don't even think the Packers would sign up for that. And by the way, just rewinding, as we're talking right now, it's 11 in the morning on this fine Tuesday, but Schefter tweeted 3 hours ago, so 8 a.m. Chicago time. This offseason, the Packers offered Aaron Rodgers a 2-year contract extension that would have tied him to Green Bay for 5 more seasons and made him the highest paid quarterback and player in football. Rodgers declined the offer, proof it's not about the money. To your point, Verderame, that this is not news, why do you think this report by Adam Schefter, whoever he's connected to, came out this morning at 8 a.m.?
I think there's always the same reason. It's a little bit of politics in the NFL. Whenever a story comes out, whenever a leak comes out, it's from the team or it's from the player. Obviously, in this case, you could make the argument that, look, Rodgers is leaking that out. Hey, they offered me, they did all they could, and I'm not taking it. But it makes a lot more sense to think that the team leaked this out and said, hey, we tried. We offered him. We tried to make him the highest paid player, and look at him. He didn't take the money, right? Like you could argue it either way, but I would certainly fall on the side that the team leaked it out to Schefter. And you know what? In the end, this is going to come down to one thing. They start camp here in a week. So like every other team in the NFL. I would be very surprised if he's there. All right. Then it becomes how long is he not there for? But ultimately, if you're the Packers, do you really care? As long as he's under center week 1 against the Saints, do you really care when he shows up?
You don't.
No.
And he doesn't
care.
He doesn't need training camp. He's been there for 16 years. He knows the offense. He knows Matt LaFleur. He knows his teammates. So that's the other thing. You can't trade him now. That window, if you were going to be aggressive like that, is way long come and gone. So, and I do think, by the way, this is very clear that the Packers wanted this back out there to try to win the public relations war, right? But so that's not. He's been complaining about the way he's been treated. He doesn't think it. He wanted them to call him and say, hey, Aaron, just so you know, and we appreciate everything you've done, and we are going to be loyal to you, but we also do want to think about our future, and we like Jordan Love a couple of years out, so we're trading up to get him. And we're going to augment the roster in other ways to win a Super Bowl this year. But we did want you to know and not get caught blindsided. That's what he wanted. And so now that I'm sure Rodgers is probably looking at this like, okay, so you're going to further turn up the heat and let everybody know again to Schefter that I turned down contract. That's not exactly a smart strategy in my mind.
I don't disagree with you. All right. But now let's just put the cards on the table with this. All right. It is getting to a point with him where he is going to lose the battle of public opinion because he's acting like a child. I mean, you're being paid a fortune. You're on a Super Bowl caliber team. Like, okay, take the legalities aside for a second. When Deshaun Watson wanted out of Houston, it was understandable. They're a dumpster fire. They're a horribly run organization, right? Like, it makes sense why he would say, look, I'm done with this. When Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson retired in their respective days from the Lions, you got it. That team was a mess. That organization was a mess. They didn't want to deal with it anymore. This narrative that Aaron Rodgers has not had help from the Packers is just bull. It's ridiculous. He became the starting quarterback in 2008, okay? They went 6-10 that year. Since then, here are the records of the Green Bay Packers. 11-5, 10-6, 15-1, 11-5, 8-7-1. He missed a lot that year. He was hurt. 12-4, 10-6, 10-6. Then they went 7-9, 6-9-1. He had some injuries in there too. Then they went 13-3, 13-3. And by the way, yes, he's a big part of that. You don't do that and win a division title almost every year of that stretch without having some damn good teammates. And if you go, I don't care when they were drafted. I don't care what the free agency looked like. It doesn't matter. What was the roster? And the roster was pretty damn good for about 10 years running. Like this idea that he's somehow been railroaded. Now, if you want to argue that the Jordan Love pick was short-sighted and they should have handled it better, I completely agree. Okay. That is on Brian Gutekunst and Mark Murphy. They eat that 100%. But let's be real. In life, okay, if every time you felt jilted by a marriage partner or by someone in business, you wouldn't be in a partnership for more than 6 months. Like the idea that like he just can't get over this is insane. You just won the MVP of the league. Get over it. Here's an idea. Go win another Super Bowl. Just should have done last year, but you played like crap in the NFC title game.
They took the ball out of his hands.
Who cares? He should have won the game. Brady threw 3 picks in the second half of that game. And look, I agree with you. You know I do. That was a ridiculous decision by LaFleur. But that's not the only reason they lost that game. The play before they took the ball out of his hands, you should have walked in the end zone. Like, does he never take any accountability for this?
Well, hold on. Let me ask you this. If Matt Verderame, the great Matt Verderame, back from vacation Matt Verderame, returning to stacking the box with his Dolphins, Patriots, Jets, Chargers pennants behind him, and he was showing off Willie Mays and Ernie Banks baseball cards before
all the AFL teams, baby. Got the pennants for all of them.
All the AFL teams. If you had Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback for 16 years, how many Super Bowls do you think you would have won?
Oh, no question. I would want to have won more than that. But my point is, but that's not totally fair. They went 15-1 and they fell apart in the divisional game.
Okay, let me say it another way. You're Matt Verderame. You're the president of the organization.
Yes.
The most important player on your team by 8 million miles is Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yeah, of course.
Of course. So your job, at least partly, is to be in a tremendous partnership with your best player. It's not that hard. So you have to understand his personality, and I'm not saying his personality is perfect, and he's got plenty of quirks just like we all do. But that's their job, to not end up estranged from your best damn player.
Agreed.
So this is, and I don't think his requests were unreasonable. I really don't.
I'm not even saying they are, but look around. Like, let's just take a history lesson. Look around the league, okay? Even in recent times, like, it didn't end well with Joe Montana in San Francisco. Now, there were injuries that played a part in that, all right? But he was pissed with Steve. They brought Steve Young in before Montana won the next 2 Super Bowls and an MVP award. Did Montana sit there and bitch up a storm and demand to be traded? No. He went out and kicked ass, and they won 2 Super Bowls, and he was the MVP in 1990. I mean, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, I don't think those two are going out for a milkshake any day soon. They just kept winning. They drafted Jimmy Garoppolo. He didn't care. He just kept winning games. Like, if you think the Patriots went out of their way to tell Tom Brady they were drafting Jimmy Garoppolo, I've got a bridge to sell you. Like, they don't care in New England. Now, again, I'm not arguing that Green Bay screwed up the way it handled Jordan Love. And I got no skin in this game. I don't care one way or the other. But I will say, like, Aaron's got a right to be pissed that they didn't talk to him, that they didn't discuss this, that they didn't go over that. They grossly mismanaged that situation. But at some point here, are you not a big boy? Like, get over it. You're on a team that has been in the NFC title game each of the last 2 years. Now, he correctly was annoyed with McCarthy toward the end. They got rid of McCarthy, I think, a year or two too late. Fair enough. But they got rid of him. Matt LaFleur is now here. Matt LaFleur has done a hell of a job, has he not? They're pretty good under him. So to me, he's 26-6 as a head coach. He has revamped that offense. And Rodgers, by the way, has had one fantastic year under him. And as the year went on, his first year got better and better as he learned the offense. My point is, at some juncture, are you ever just going to say to yourself, I'm in a pretty good situation. Go win a Super Bowl. Go out and win one. Because I got to tell you, as great as he was last year, in the NFC title game, while he certainly was not the only person on that team that fell apart, he was not great in that game. That game was on his racket. He should have won that game. And quite honestly, if they played the Chiefs with all the injuries they had in the Super Bowl last year, he should have won that game too. At some point, it's on you, man.
Listen, I'm not trying to paint Aaron Rodgers as a perfect person on and or off the field, but, and now we're officially talking in circles. But again, he doesn't have to be perfect because he's just that damn good at his job. So you bend for someone like that. People are always like, well, everyone should get the same treatment. No. The top of the food chain who puts so many dollars in your pockets and makes players around him better and is the face of the franchise, he gets a lot more leeway. And maybe Aaron's asking for too much leeway. I'm not even going to say he's not. But again, and sure, there's been a zillion instances in the NFL where quarterbacks have gone on to play their final years of their contract elsewhere, like you aptly pointed out with Montana and Kansas City. And there's,
Brett Favre.
Sure. All we have to do is look at Favre and Minnesota and the Jets, and we don't have to leave Green Bay. I get it. Yep. But that's not, just because that's happened doesn't mean that that's the model of how you want to do it. Even Phillip Rivers, whatever. But,
look, I'll say this, and I'll finish on this with this subject. Would you agree, though, that he's being overly difficult at this point? Like, I mean, as great of a talent as he is, there does come a point where even if you're the franchise, you're like, look, we're not putting up with this. This is ridiculous. Just stop.
Yeah, but sure. Then okay, that's the other side of it, and then we can finish this too. If you think he's being ridiculous, or just maybe even you're looking in the mirror, I'm like, you know what, he's right, but for whatever reason, we can't do exactly whatever it is. Maybe there's nothing they feel like they can do. Then don't you owe it to him to say, hey, look, Aaron, this is not what we want to do at all. It's not going to be popular with our fan base, and we're going to have to take on a lot of shrapnel coming at us. But if you really don't want to be here for everything you've done, where do you want to go? Or we'll trade you. We're going to make the best deal possible. Go down that road then. That would be a integrous move, would it not? At this point,
I mean, I just think if you're the Packers, you're going to kindly tell him that's your problem. See you in September. And if we don't see you in September, fine. Then you're going to pay us back some money. We're going to find the daylights out of you. That's what's going to happen. I think after this year, he's gone. I think after this year, they will sit there, they'll line up every suitor they can, and they'll trade him for the highest possible bid, right? And that's what they ought to do. But for now, I think the Packers are just going to sit there and say, look, what other option do you have? You don't have, in the end, you always hear these people in the media, the part that we're of, that I'll never understand the thought process of, well, he's got all the leverage. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. The Packers control his rights. They have the leverage. And if they don't want him playing somewhere else, he can piss and moan and kick the tires all he wants. He's going nowhere. Nowhere. And I think that's how the season ends. And then I think he will be traded next offseason.
So to really wrap up this topic, and we've got Deuce McAllister coming up in 2 minutes here. Deuce coming up, and then we will talk some Chicago Bears. Will DeWitt will be with us coming up here as well right after Deuce. But so you're Jordan Love. You're sitting on the sidelines. You're watching all this. You're seeing contract extensions, highest paid. You're seeing your life as a backup quarterback being extended. Are you calling up Brian Gutekunst and say, hey, dude, appreciate everything you're doing. I get that you love Aaron, but I want to play football. Can you send me somewhere?
I mean, I'm not calling him, but my agent sure is. Because if you're trying to extend Rodgers throughout the length of my rookie contract, you clearly don't think I'm any good, right? Like if you had, let's just say, I'm not saying he's Mahomes, okay? Let's say the Packers thought that Jordan Love was Justin Herbert. Would they be sitting there trying to extend Rodgers for years on end here into his 40s? No, they wouldn't. They'd go, all right, Herbert's not Rodgers, but he's pretty damn good. Like, it's fine. We'll do that. We'll go that route. So I think what it tells you is the Packers don't think all that highly of a player that they drafted a year ago in the first round. And I also think it's telling that, have you looked around and noticed that Nobody seems to ever say anything real positive out of the media about Jordan Love. Like, nobody's gone out of their way to be like, man, watch them in camp, dime after dime after dime. Or, hey, I talked to a source at the Packers. They're enamored with him. They can't wait to see him on the field. You've heard none of that. None of it. I remember when Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith, there were people in camp that year who were like, my God, this kid's unbelievable. You know, you even heard that. I mean, you heard that with Burrow last year. Hey, this kid's going to be big time right away. You don't even worry. Doesn't mean Jordan Love can't be. I think it's, if I'm Jordan Love, I'm thinking, oh, do they really want me? Do they really love me? Because it doesn't maybe seem that way.
Yeah, I suppose. But we didn't have training camp. We didn't have exhibition games.
Sure. All good points.
It's there's just been a lack of an opportunity for him to put some shine on the old Jordan Love jersey, if you will, to get people talking about him. But let's take a quick time out right now, and let's bring in Deuce McAllister coming back here. Our conversation with Deuce, which does include some Aaron Rodgers and his experience with a young Eli Manning at Ole Miss. And, of course, we stop in New Orleans with Drew Brees, what he was like when he got there, and what it looks like for the Saints moving forward without Drew right now. Are they ready? Deuce McAllister, the two-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion from the New Orleans Saints, coming right up. Hey, let's talk some SEC here, and I want to get to the NFL as well. But there was media days yesterday, and the commissioner, Greg Sankey, was talking about diversity, trying to create more of that. And there are no black head coaches right now in the SEC. And also, we're looking for more athletic directors. And Deuce, you know this well, you know, being an Ole Miss guy. This is obviously the right direction. Has it been a frustration point for you that more black people have not gotten chances to be head coaches in the SEC?
I think probably from a national level, I think you probably are more frustrated here in the South. You know, obviously we've had some African American as far as coaches that have been a part of the SEC. And, you know, obviously, you know, at the end of the day, I know what the main thing is can you build a program? Can you win? Can you win consistently? And, you know, just depending on that program, that's going to take time. And so, you know, right now in today's society, I don't know if you're committed to the time that it may take to build a certain program, depending on what they're facing as far as maybe lack of talent, maybe you know, probation, some of those issues and things that you may be looking at. And so, you know, I can understand from an SEC standpoint and obviously from a national standpoint, but I think at the end of the day, it has to work hand in hand with the administration as well as with the community, as far as the football community and his staff, as well as athletic director.
So you don't think the conference has been a little slow in this department? Is that unfair?
Well, I don't know if it's the conference's deal. You know, I know the conference can make some recommendations, but at the end of the day, it's going to be the institution's call. And so, you know, there's only probably so much that a conference-wide they can do and they can push. You know, you can do some recommendations, et cetera, but at the end of the day, it's going to be an institution call. And that's probably more so where the athletic director and the president has to be a lot more involved, as well as your stakeholders as far as your board of trustees, et cetera.
Yeah, it makes sense. Verderame, you want to jump in here with some wherever you want to go, really?
Well, yeah, I think, you know, sticking with the SEC, you know, Deuce, I wanted to ask you about your playing days at Ole Miss, and one of the guys was a teammate of yours, maybe a little briefly, but was a teammate there, was Eli Manning, and I'm curious, you know, what was it like to be a teammate of 18, 19-year-old Eli Manning?
Big Easy was young and immature, you know, like probably any 18-year-old, 19-year-old young man is. And so for him, it was about learning. You know, we obviously know what he turned up to be as far as a player, not only at Ole Miss, but in New York as well. But at that time, you know, he was a freshman. I was with Eli his freshman and redshirt freshman year. And so, you know, you got to see him grow. You got to see him mature. And so, you know, I don't think it was any different from any other young man that was, you know, away from home for the first time. And, you know, I'm not under my mom and dad's, you know, roof, and I can go out and kind of hang out and be one of the boys. And that's really what Eli did. You know, at that time, Payton had not reached the ultimate level as far as success that he was kind of going to achieve. So for Eli, it was more so, hey, look, you know, I'm coming in, I'm working hard, I'm going to learn, I'm going to make some mistakes, and then I'm going to have fun off the field. And so it was pretty interesting. We're still pretty good friends, and so I'm happy for he and Payton for the work that they will do on Monday Night Football with the simulcast, some of the things that they're going to be able to do with ESPN, and it should be a pretty good product.
Deuce, what's your take on the conversation around the vaccine right now? There's they're saying in the SEC at least that, hey, if your team doesn't have enough guys to play, well, then we're not rescheduling the games. What do you think is the best way, I guess, to move forward right now, the way you're seeing it?
Well, I think, obviously the SEC stance last year was a lot different from than what it is this year and how they're going to kind of go about their business. I think at the end of the day, they're going to do what's best for the conference overall. And so, I think when you look at it from an institutional standpoint, one of the things that they're going to have to make sure as far as from a testing standpoint, that's something they know the SEC rule. I think last year there was a limit or a threshold that you had to have a certain amount of players. This year it looks like they're not going to be doing that. And so if you only have 40 guys available, if you can't play, it's basically going to be a forfeit. And so in a sense, they're not mandating it, but in so many words, they are kind of pushing it to that way because you got to have the bodies to be able to go out there and play. And so, there will be some conversations that a lot of teams have, in-house of how they're going to handle it, whether they're going to make their guys get the vaccine or, obviously the testing is going to be a lot more rigorous.
Deuce, when you go into the NFL, obviously you had pretty immediate success, a couple of Pro Bowl seasons, although the Saints themselves struggling along early on in your career. And then they went out and they signed Drew Brees, which in hindsight, of course, is arguably the greatest move the franchise has ever made. But at the time, he's a guy who was coming off of an uneven career with the Chargers. He's got the shoulder surgery. What were your thoughts at the time when the Saints brought in Drew Brees?
Just win. Just win. I think, that was the biggest thing for myself. And then also, if you go back and remember, that was right after Hurricane Katrina. And so there was a lot of uncertainty around us as far as a franchise and organization. And, like you said, I had some personal success, but not a lot of team success. And so, to be able to bring in a guy of Drew Brees' character and, what he had done, obviously, at Purdue, what he was able to achieve in San Diego. And, you talk about having them draft Phillip Rivers. And so there was some, some career-wise, there was some challenges there. And so for him to come in and just be a leader, and obviously we know how the story, kind of ended. But at that time, it was like, hey, look, I just want to win. And so if he could come in and help us do that, then I was all for it.
What do you think the franchise looks right now without Drew? Are they ready for this?
We'll see. I know that they've been able to play a couple of games the last couple of years. You've had some pretty good success with Drew missing some games over the last 2 years. The team has been successful, but now you talk about long term. And I think the biggest thing for those guys is there's still enough talent on that roster that they can go out there and be competitive. And so we'll just see. I mean, obviously it'll be different. That he won't be able to come in and save you as far as a team is concerned. But at the end of the day, there's enough talent where guys have to step up and, really be able to go out there and be dedicated to it. But we'll see how it ends.
Well, Drew Brees is gone. Sean Payton is not, still very much the head coach. And I'm curious, you played under him for a few seasons there. What was it like playing for Sean? And do you have any funny stories? Because I've interviewed Sean a few times, met with him, and he's a pretty interesting guy. He can be funny when he wants to be. Like, what? Do you have any stories of Sean Payton, maybe either when you first got to know him or as time went on that you can share?
He's mellowed a lot. I'll put it that way. And, he's we called him Parcells Jr. early on, but, he's really grown into who he is as far as a coach and how he coaches a team. And, the last couple of years he's had a veteran team. And so you can coach those guys a little bit different, and just talking to him, getting to know him, his coaching style, playing for him. At times he has to be tougher, just because of the guys that he has. But, having certain players on his team and letting them be able to leave, that's what he prefers. But I can tell you right now, he's fired up for this team and, the opportunity that they have just to be able to go out and prove and show that they can win without Drew. I know it's not something that he probably prefers, but he likes the challenge as well.
Deuce, we're going to make you weigh in on Aaron Rodgers. I've got him on the line right now, and he's asking you, hey, they just gave me an offer, highest paid player in football. I turned it down. I'm not sure if I did the right thing. Deuce, what do you think? What would you tell Aaron?
What's the structure of the deal? highest paid, is that for 1 year? What is the structure of the deal? You look at the Patrick Mahomes deal and, on paper, it looks great. There are a couple quarterbacks that will get a higher average per year than he will as far as immediate money. So that's the biggest thing, Aaron. Obviously you've been successful there. The team is very, very good. There's a lot of pieces still there that you can win with, but what's the structure of the deal? And so from a financial side, that's what I want to know. Highest paid sounds good, looks good, but what's the payout of the funding and what's the structure of the deal?
So it sounds like you say, hey man, play football. Don't squeeze as much juice out of the lemon as possible.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously that's the case, but I think it's a little bit more than that with him in the situation. I don't know if it's just about the playing football side. He's fine playing football, but I mean, obviously he wants to be compensated as one of the highest paid quarterbacks. And if you see some of the deals that have been signed, you can understand it. But some of those deals also, that's when those guys were up, and so you can't kind of control that. So I think he will get it worked out. It would be disappointing if it's not there in Green Bay.
Last thing quick from me, Deuce. Really appreciate your time. You went to 2 Pro Bowls. You have a Super Bowl ring. When you look back at your career, what is the moment to you that stands out the most?
The Super Bowl. I mean, obviously that's probably the highest for any athlete, just to be able to be a part of that, be at that moment, to be able to say you are a world champ. That's one of the highest. I still probably remember my first touchdown scoring against the Atlanta Falcons. You remember the reopening of the dome as far as after Katrina. But I mean, obviously it's in Miami, and it's being a part of the Super Bowl winning team in 2009.
Thanks to Deuce McAllister. Anything stand out there for you, Matt Verderame?
I thought the stuff with Eli was actually pretty funny. The nickname and just, can you imagine Eli Manning being immature and a partier? That kind of just the image of it kind of cracked me up, because I picture Eli being that kid in college who just kind of hung out, had a cup of noodles, watched Seinfeld and went to bed at 8. Apparently not the case.
Well, that could be perhaps our next guest, who's doing a phenomenal job, the founder and host of the Chicago Audible. Nicholas Moreno's is one of his partners. We've had Nick on a bunch of stuff here. This man, Will DeWitt, comes out of Indiana University. Hey, Will, were you crushing ramen noodles at IU and having fun like Eli was at Ole Miss?
Maybe not as much fun as Eli. I actually was one of those weird students where I went to IU already married. So I took a weird longer path. My wife is a few years younger than me, so I did like community school. Got some of those general studies out of the way. So by the time I got to IU, a little bit older, at least from a maturity level, but definitely ramen noodles was a staple for us throughout those years.
It's definitely a different path, but as long as you didn't say that I went to IU for the football, that would have been completely, unheralded in the history of Indiana University.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If I had to choose a single Big Ten school, I think if I would have went to Rutgers, that would have been the only worst case scenario, at least at that time. But IU football has changed just a little bit.
It's true. It's true. That's maybe my shot at IU football is perhaps unwarranted in recent note. And is Rutgers really in the Big Ten? Same thing with you, Maryland. Hey, Will, we're here for you to talk some Bears and some NFC North with us, so we appreciate you taking time. Everybody wants to know when Justin Fields is going to start, so why don't you tell us when he's going to start? What you got, week 1 or week never?
Week 1 or week never. Well, if I had to choose between the two, I'm choosing week 1. Just throw him into the fire. If the other only choice is never. If we can find a happy medium, though, Mark, I would probably prefer somewhere around week 8 just makes sense to me. The 49ers, we actually talked about this in our previous episode, Countdown to Camp quarterbacks that we recorded last night, came out today. And yeah, I just feel like somewhere in the middle of the season, the Bears are going to see that they're a quarterback away. And when I look at the Bears schedule and the week previous to that, the Buccaneers, who the Bears beat last season, I feel like if that game's close and they just feel like, hey, we're one player away, and that's Justin Fields, that gives Matt Nagy all the ammunition that he needs to pull that trigger. And after about a month or two of just going through game prep and film study and watching these defenses, I feel like that just, to me, feels like the right time.
Carm and I have a running bet that I believe Fields will start before October. And obviously you're on the side of Carm, because says that he won't. Now, you guys are both Bears guys. Yeah, I just cover the whole league. So I don't have that hyper focus on the Bears. I look at it and say, if Justin Fields is good and he's what you expect him to be in camp, preseason, if you're the Bears, you're really going to look at him do that and then look at Andy Dalton and just go, no, you know what? Let's roll with Andy Dalton for a month and a half. Let's give that a shot. I just can't imagine, especially with the pressure that is on that organization. Like the Bears, they desperately need this year to be a good year. Ryan Payton, this can't be 6-11. This can't be 7-10. Same is true for Nagy, right? So if I'm them and Fields is lighting it up in preseason and he's looking good in camp and he's got it under control, I'd be like, hey, week 1, buddy, maybe I let Dalton play week 1 and get smoked by the Rams defense and just go, all right, week 2 of the Bengals, here you go. Like I just can't believe that if he's ready, that he's not going to play. Most rookie quarterbacks now, they play pretty much right away. They just do. It's just the trend of the league the last 15 years.
Will, explain to him why I'm right and Verderame's wrong. Go ahead.
Yeah, patience always perseveres. There's no reason to throw him to the wolves if you have a surrounding cast that can still win you games. Even if he's, quote, ready, I still believe that he can be more prepared. And again, you have some of those defenses early on. It's a tough schedule. I'm not saying the tough schedule is tough enough where I would totally give him a redshirt year. I would love to get him some on-field experience this season. But again, I feel like Andy Dalton's going to win you enough games. They're going to be serviceable enough to kind of get you to a point where if you're ready to take that next step, and heck, you throw Justin Fields in mid-season, that's going to give that team a spark that maybe wasn't there earlier that can really sustain itself for the rest of the year, maybe into the postseason.
And just for the record, on the never thing, I think I need to clarify myself here. I didn't mean never, never, never. I meant never as in this year. Like from week 1, which I think is obviously not going to happen, to week he doesn't play this year and starts, week 1 of 2022. I don't think that's happening either. But I do feel very confident in our bet, and I wanted to have Verderame have to jump and do the polar plunge because he's certainly not playing in September. I would be stunned. But he's like, I think we all know he's going to look better than Andy Dalton in training camp. That's not going to be something that's going to surprise Matt Nagy and company. But maybe you should touch on what Verderame's saying here. Like the Bears have to have a big year. I don't think they do. I think that Virginia and company, they love Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy enough that, listen, if they go 7-10 this year, but Fields comes in midseason and he shows progress, that's enough for them to keep their jobs.
Without a doubt, they wouldn't have given them the draft capital to move up in there to get Justin Fields. And when you draft a quarterback as high as the Bears did, that buys you time. Even though Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy were on the hot seat entering this offseason, a lot of fans were calling for their heads. Now that they found the next franchise guy potentially here for the Bears, you have to give them the opportunity to see what they can do to develop him, whether it be building the team around him, which they already have a pretty solid team on both sides of the ball, or just giving him the time to work with Coach Nagy. I feel like if you have a bad year and you want to play it patient and you let them walk, you're doing Justin Fields such a disservice because now he has to learn a whole nother offense. Now he's going to be even further behind the 8 ball. And instead of, if you just let him sit, as much as that would suck as a Bears fan to just know he's waiting. But if Andy Dalton's playing out of his mind, then he's earning himself a huge contract next season too, somewhere else. Well, that worst case scenario. Again, worst case scenario is, you throw him out into the wolves now, you end up having to jump ship because the record isn't where you want it, and then you let them restart all over again. That was something I'd never want to see here in Chicago.
Did you hear that for him? Job preservation. He sits later, then you bring him in. It keeps them hired.
I'm a big believer in pressure, and if the Bears go out and get beat 24-3 against the Rams because Andy Dalton's out there throwing for like $120 and 2 picks, the pressure is going to be overwhelming early on. Now, I'm not saying the Bears will just immediately cave in, okay? But pressure matters. There was no fans last year, right? Like last year was a totally different year. You're not getting booed at your home stadium. You could be losing 45-0. Not that the Bears were ever doing that in the game, but they're going to be happening. You're not going to get booed. This year, if things don't go well early, they are going to be hearing it from all sides. Look, maybe you guys are right and I'm wrong. I think pressure is going to be a massive thing, especially if Fields doesn't look good in the summer, that's one thing. Then I think it's like, all right, he needs to have some time. And if he looks really, really good early, you're going to have fans who are going, why the hell is he on the bench? Even if you guys don't feel that way, you're going to have a lot of fans in Chicago who are like, what are we doing? Why is he not out there? I'm sick of this. I've been waiting for a franchise quarterback since Sid Luckman. Get him on the field. And I think that Nagy and Pace are under a lot of pressure to do it.
You can't care what Rocco in section 422 wrote.
You can if it's 70,000 strong.
70,000 strong.
And our guy Danny Parkins is just getting lit up on the airwaves day and night. Like, look, man, you and I both know that is reality, though. That does happen. I'm not saying it happens like an overnight thing, but if it's day after day, week after week, and you're getting, hey, fire this guy, get this guy out of here. That stuff does matter at some point. It always does. It always has, and it always will.
Will, weigh in on the pressure that you're seeing on the organization.
Oh, it depends on what happens, right? If they're still winning games, I think the pressure is going to be somewhat minimal. There's going to be angst, but I wouldn't call that pressure. Then if you end up losing consecutive games, if they go on like a 3-game skid, whether that be early in the season, middle of the season, then you can start thinking about making that move. But if they're still in contention of all these games and winning more than they're losing, I feel like there's not that pressure. I feel like fans will have some anxiety because they're nervous, they're excited, they want to see Fields actually out there playing ball. But if you're winning, you can't argue with the results, and you just it gives you more time, as we were talking about earlier.
I mean, look, you lose to the Rams.
And the Rams have the number 1 defense. Like,
right.
I don't know.
You lose at home to Cincinnati and you're 0-2. It'll get hot. It will. Depending on how it goes. If Andy Dalton throws 3 picks against his former team, the Bengals, and you lose 24-12, okay, then it's not going to be a great Monday, September 20th in Chicago as far as the Bears conversation goes. And then the next week you go out and you lose to Cleveland, and now you're 0-3. That's why I think, like, okay, fine, maybe the earliest he could start is Detroit at home on October the 3rd. But that's the same way that you did business with Mitchell Trubisky. You went out and made a moronic signing and brought in Mike Glennon, who could never play, but somehow Ryan Pace convinced himself that he could. And then he sucked. And like, okay, Mitch, get out there in week 4 when Mitchell Trubisky needed every benefit of every doubt and as much time as possible to learn the system, because one of his biggest weaknesses was upstairs. He wasn't some guy that was just going to immediately pick things up. So they did him. I'm not saying he would have been great, but they did not take care of him well. And Fields is, by all accounts, like the super smart guy who's getting ridiculous scores on all his tests. So maybe it matters less with him, but I still think you want to protect the guy. Which is how Will started this, by the way. Let's move to the division. We got a question on the docket here today for you, Will. Do you think the Vikings are a sleeper, or is this the same old Vikings?
I feel like it's the same old Vikings. I don't think they've did anything this offseason that really moves the needle for me. I don't think they're going to be bottom of the division or anything of that nature. I just don't see them really seriously contending. Again, they haven't made a ton of moves. They're losing a lot of that defense, that what made it as powerful as it was a few years ago. And I think Kirk Cousins' best friend is a good defense. And if you don't have a defense that's top 10, maybe top 5 in terms of points allowed, I don't think Cousins is someone that's going to go out there and just win that team a whole bunch of games.
I think with Minnesota, I like what they did defensively. They get Michael Pierce back from the opt-out list. They get Dalvin Tomlinson. They bring in Rashad Breeland and Patrick Peterson. Peterson's not who he once was, but he's a good number 2 corner. Like, I think they're better. The question I have with Minnesota, and the question everybody has with Minnesota, is Cousins. And I think the Cousins question at this point has been answered. He's Derek Carr in the NFC. Like, he's fine. He's fine. He's not terrible. He's not a bad quarterback, but he's not a top 10 guy. He's probably somewhere between like 12 and 15, somewhere in that range. I do like Minnesota. I think Minnesota gets back to the playoffs this year. Now, do I think they're on the same level some of these teams in the NFC West, or Tampa or Green Bay, if Green Bay has a Rodgers who's committed? No. But I think the Vikings are going to be back to being what they were a couple years ago, which is a team that could go in and win a playoff game, be a problem. But again, it comes back to Cousins. Like, if they had a quarterback who was a top 8, like they had Dak on that team, they would be really dangerous, because you have Thielen and Jefferson and Cook. They've invested in that line with Bradbury and Darashaw. They have a good defense, I think, anyway, on paper here as we get lined up for 2021. But Cousins holds me back from saying they're a contender. I do think, however, they're a playoff team this year, and I do
Yeah.
think that they're a 10-win team, something
Right,
like that.
right. I think they're better than the Bears and better than Detroit, and they could be better than Green Bay, depending on what happens in Green Bay. We started the podcast today, Will, talking Rodgers, just without being super long-winded here, because we got 2 other topics for you. But I'm just curious, do you think he plays for Green Bay this year? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I've been asked this a couple different times when I've been on some podcasts throughout the summer, the off season, and I always feel like in Green Bay, they need news. They need something to talk about. And every year, I feel like there's something going on between Rodgers and the organization, or Rodgers and his coach. And then we get to training camp, and then you hear about quote tension, and then you get to week 1, and then it's just business as usual. I just feel like it's always a news topic, a talking point for people to kind of just use for Green Bay, because without it, no one would be talking about it.
That is a good Bears haze at sleepy Green Bay, Wisconsin. And what the hell do you guys have to do up there? So you might as well just create some controversy every offseason. I see you, Will, but just to represent my Wisconsin peeps out there, all you got to say is, yeah, but we're the Packers, and we're the Brewers, and we're the Bucks, and you're the Bulls, the Cubs, and the Bears, right? I mean, Wisconsin.
Well, I'm a Sox fan, so you left them out.
Okay, well, because my point is less strong with the White Sox, who actually have a chance to win the World Series this year. But
I understand.
Yeah, right. We got it. Hey, a little bit outside of the North, do you think Deshaun Watson will suit up for a single game in 2021? Verderame, you want to go first on this one? What's your thoughts?
I don't think you will. I think the commissioner's exempt list is going to be playing a factor here shortly, because for anyone who doesn't know, you can be placed on that list. You are effectively suspended with pay. So until all of his legal matters are sorted out, and we really don't know what stage those are in, we all remember now, of course, that almost 24 women have alleged misconduct with Watson. Most of those are civil suits. I don't think the NFL is going to take him off the commissioner's exempt list once he's placed on it until everything is completely taken care of. And when you're talking about that many civil suits and issues and whatnot, I think it's going to take a while. I don't think this is just going to all of a sudden, hey, everything's done and taken care of. I think we're going to be looking at this for quite some time. And obviously we're all kind of shooting blind here a little bit, because legal troubles can be very individualistic. But I think we're probably looking at him not starting the season with the team, and I don't think he's going to be playing any day soon for the Texans.
Will, I want you to go back, and you can weigh in on that if you want, but I just want to, if we listen back to the Chicago Audible in 2017, and you guys have been around since 2015, and the Chicago Audible is awesome for all your Bears conversation. You should be listening. Check it out. Who did you want for the Bears quarterback when it was Watson and Mahomes, and I think his name was Trubisky?
Honestly, that season, I didn't think the Bears were going to go QB round 1. I know my co-host Nicholas Moriano projected the Bears were going to get Mahomes. And if I remember that, I know, and he had him there too. I was like, kudos, would have been a great pick at number 3 for the Bears. I just, honestly, that year, I wasn't even anticipating quarterback. That's what shocked me the most about the Trubisky pick. Like, I thought they drafted up and it was going to be like Solomon Thomas, like their own defense, Jonathan Allen, however it's going to shake out. Then he go QB. Didn't think they were going to do that. For some reason, 2016 me, which I was in college, I was younger, a little bit more naive at the time. I was drinking, or at least buying, what Ryan Pace is selling with that Mike Glennon. I was going to say Kool-Aid, but I think that was not palatable enough to be called that.
Oh, wow. We have a Glennon believer with us today, Verderame.
We do not. That's not what I'm going to be known for.
For a minute, you were willing to give the Bears the benefit of the doubt, that's a good Bears fan right there. Hey, Will, appreciate you jumping on, man. I know this is in the middle of your day. You made time for us. We really, really appreciate it. The Chicago Audible is awesome. I know you guys get a ton of downloads, but let's add on, and so check it out for the Bear fan out there, or even just the NFL fan. A great pod.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that a lot.
Thanks for coming on, Will.
We will take a quick timeout, come back, and wrap up Stack in the Box, brought to you by Manscaped next. Thanks again to our guy, Will DeWitt from the Chicago Audible. Big podcast today, Verderame. Good to have you back, brother, by the way.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back. It's a good one to come back for. It's loaded.
well, in a second here, and what's going on, maybe Verderame will share some of his vacation highlights. But let's do in or out. Travis Kelce, we're starting with you. We'll have 1,500 receiving yards this year. Big year. Certainly possible. In or out?
I'm out, but I think it's interesting. Like last year, he led all tight ends by a wide margin. He had over 1,400 receiving yards, and he didn't even play in Week 17. If he plays Week 17, he could have gotten to 1,500. Could have been the first time ever that a tight end led the league in receiving yards. He ended up finishing second. He finished behind Stephon Diggs, who of course played Week 17. I'm fascinated to see this. Obviously, we have an extra game this year. Now, if you're talking about tight ends in terms of just who's the guy who's had the most yards in a season for a tight end, okay, you start thinking about names like Kellen Winslow and Ozzie Newsome and Rob Gronkowski, right? You think about all those guys, and you'd say, well, somebody had to have had 1,500. Nope. No tight end has ever had 1,500 yards in a season. It's never happened before. So if it happens this year, we're looking at history. In fact, who's the all-time record holder for yards in a season for a tight end? It's Travis Kelce last year, 1,416. Okay, he's the only tight end to ever go over 1,400 yards. So can he go over 1,500? I'm out, because to put back-to-back years like that together is just insane, even for a guy who now has had 5 straight years of 1,000 yards.
So let's see. Do the Chiefs offense rely on Travis Kelce more this year, plus the extra game?
Right.
Let's go with in, Verderame. Let's go good trade. Let's have it. You're in your prime one more time. Let's dance with who brung you, if you will. Thank you very much, Travis Kelce. You and Patrick Mahomes are going to have a hell of a season. I'll take the in on that. Washington will have a top 3 defense in 2021. In or out? That seems pretty tall. You're in.
I'm in. I think they're going to be really, really, really good defensively this season. That front four, all first-round picks. Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, Chase Young. I love William Jackson III as a corner. They bring him in 3-year deal. That's a really good defense, man. Like a really, really good defense. First of all, I'm a huge believer in if you can get pressure, you're a very good defense, right? Like Pittsburgh last year, when that group was healthy, why were they dominant? Because they would just beat the hell out of you up front, right? A couple of years ago, New England, if you remember, last year Brady was there. They started out really hot. They were just bringing pressure day and night. Now, I don't think Washington's going to have to bring a lot of blitzes because they're so good up front. The linebackers are okay. Look, Bostic's a decent enough player. I don't love the linebackers, but I love Kendall Fuller, Landon Collins at safety, William Jackson over at corner. That's a really good group, okay? And then they have Ben St. Juste, who's a rookie. I'm high on. I like him. So I think this is actually going to be a very, very good defense. And also, let's factor in, they're in a division with the rebuilding Eagles, okay, who have no offense. And the Giants have a lot of weapons, but Daniel Jones, who's always happy to throw 2 picks or fumble the ball twice or both. I like that group a lot.
Yeah, look, they were number 2 last year, and that division hasn't changed at all. And they're incredible, as you say, getting pressure. You look at the top 3 defenses last year, the Rams, the Washington football team, and the Steelers. I mean, they're like far and away, which also plays into who they're going against styles, but they far and away as far as limiting yards through the air. So it's a fair take. I don't think it's time to take chips off the table, so I'll be in with you. Let's go on to Sam Darnold. Will play more than 1 year for Carolina. He actually shows up and becomes a fixture, perhaps, with the Panthers. In or out? I'm going to be in on this for the record. I'm betting
really
on
thought
Sam.
a lot about this, even though I'm the one who put it on the rundown. I really went back and forth. I'm in as well. Look, he's a guy who I've always thought has a lot of talent, but has just been beset by horrendous team management and coaching around him. And some of it's his own doing, dumb turnovers. I think Matt Rule's a really good coach for him. And I like the weaponry around him, man. You got a DJ Moore, you got Robbie Anderson, of course, starting to play with the Jets, Christian McCaffrey, a decent offensive line. Like I think he plays better this year. I'm not saying I think he's a top 10 quarterback. I don't think that, but I do think he makes enough strides this year that they pick up that 50-year option, and that they keep him. Now, for the record, okay, he's entering his 4th year, but Sam Darnold, only 24 years old, right? Like a very young guy. And if you're the Panthers, who, by the way, I should mention already picked up this 50-year option, but it's only injury guaranteed, so they could cut him at any timeouts this year and not incur any issues. I think the Panthers will see enough in him to go, you know what? Okay. Even if maybe they draft a quarterback to sit behind him, I think he's at least there for a couple of years.
Yeah, I don't listen. They took a shot at him for a reason. It wasn't just a complete, hey, there's nobody else out there. Let's just go get Sam Darnold. I think they see something. I think a lot of people see something in Sam Darnold. And of course, there's the Jets factor, which is enormous. So I'm in there. And then Urban Meyer will coach more than 30 games for the Jaguars, in or out. There are a lot of people predicting complete and utter disaster with Urban Meyer. Look, man, you've got Trevor Lawrence. I think this is going to go better, be at least okay for Urban, that he'll be able to survive 2 seasons in Jacksonville. I would be in.
I'm out. I think he's there for a year. I think he's done it. I really, not because they'll fire him. I think he's going to quit.
You think he took the job to coach there for 1 year?
No, I don't think he did that intentionally, but I think he is going to say, this is no fun. This sucks. That's what I think he's going to say.
Oof.
Because,
Okay.
man, look, you go to that, and by the way, obviously, look, I'm taking more of the gambler side of this, because if you were a betting man, you would take that he'd be there for more than a year. My rationale is, and I wrote about this in my column on Monday, the Stack in the Box column over on FanSided, please check it out. I wrote that if you go and look at the timeline since he got hired, it's been nothing but issues with him, right? Like, they brought him in, he hires a coach to come in. That coach resigns the next day because of racism allegations dating back to his time in college. Okay. Then they have an OTA violation where the team and he are combined fined $300,000. They draft Travis Etienne in the first round, who, by the way, might be great. But Meyer defends the pick because they already have James Robinson, who is a really good-looking young running back entering his 2nd year. Shout out to Rockford. And they draft Travis Etienne. He's like, well, he's going to be a 3rd down back. You drafted a kid in the first round to be a 3rd down back on that team that just lost 15 straight games. I mean, there's just so much that has gone into this. And I just think if you're Urban Meyer, you're looking at this going, man, like at Ohio State and at Utah and at Florida, I was the big man on campus. I could do whatever I wanted. I was the only guy getting paid there. Like, my word was law. You know as well as I do. You've been around pro athletes. If he's really chewing out some veteran, they're going to turn around and be, look, man, I make 3 times as much as you. I don't need to listen to this crap. I don't care. I'm not some 18-year-old kid. You're not going to treat me like that. And I think, there's a big difference between what you can get away with as a college coach and a big high-profile one in a college town where you are the end-all, be-all, and when you go to a pro sport where they don't care. Steve Spurrier found that out. Nick Saban found that out. I think Urban Meyer is about to find out the same thing.
Right, but he's not in Dallas. He's not in Chicago. He's not in New York.
Like Miami with Nick Saban, like,
that's true. That's fine.
I grant you, Jacksonville is right. It is probably the most laid back in the markets. I agree with you, but man, it's still the NFL.
Yeah, no, that's true. And there's a lot of attention at even
Bobby
on Jacksonville.
Petrino.
Yeah, sure. He's not. It's not like he's going to be able to hide out and be terrible and no one's going to say anything. But I do. I mean, you put it at 30 games. I gotta. I'm a conservative Carm. I got to take the in on that one. All right, Verderame, talk to me. What's going on in the life? How was the vacation? I know football's back this weekend and you're excited.
The vacation was beautiful. 20 days of bliss. I went to Connecticut for the first 5 days. I drove out, met my wife and daughter who flew into Hartford, and then we drove to the family's small, and I mean small, cottage. In fact, it was funny. It was about 96 degrees up there. And this cottage was built in the 1800s, right? So it obviously was not built with central air. So we're all sitting there talking. My parents are up there with us. It's the five of us. I said, look, we got to, because we're going to go to the beach in Rhode Island. We were going to drive a 45-minute trip. It's over to Watchell, Rhode Island. So my dad wanted to be there because Maisie's like the fourth generation of us that have all gone to this beach. And there's a carousel there, which is the oldest carousel in the United States, right? So that was fun. Maisie loved that, by the way. Huge fan. And we're sitting there just frying in this house. We're like, well, we got to do something. But the house is so damn old. Like if you turn on a light fixture and then you also turn the microwave on, like the lights dim. Right? So we took a chance. We bought 3 air conditioners and jammed them in this house. Somehow it worked. So it ended up being beautiful. We had a great time, a lot of fun. My wife and I went to Fenway Park, caught a Red Sox game. I always wanted to go see a game at Fenway. So that was cool. 8 rows off the field, right behind the pesky pole. And then went to New York for essentially, 12 or 13 days. Stayed at the family lake house, which was nice. Might be the last time we ever do it. The lake house might be out of our family's hands here after this year. So we really got to enjoy that quite a bit. Went up to Cooperstown with my buddy and bought some baseball cards. Also, randomly at Cooperstown, bought a Walt Clyde Frazier autographed Knicks jersey. So very happy about that. We'll frame that up, put it down here in the basement. But it was a great time, man. Had a lot of fun. Went to an Italian bakery, which, by the way, for the love of God, out in the Midwest, bakeries, delis, get more of them. Went there, loaded up on black and white cookies. Oh, it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful.
I'm jealous, man. It sounds incredible. Although the way you started out with the cabin and 100 degrees and 7,000 people,
it wasn't looking good early, but we turned it around.
Yeah, no, you were. I would have freaked. Where's the comfort in?
Is Poppy still alive? I need to know this 3 weeks later.
Well, hang on. Just talk to yourself. Hang on.
All right, because for anyone who hasn't been following along with this, Carm got a dog, Poppy, with his wife, who Carm named this thing, almost named it like 3 different times. So apparently the dog is alive and well, though we might get visual proof here in a second. If you're listening to the podcast, we're also on air now. There is Poppy. My God. The dog hasn't moved since you've been holding it, so I'm hoping there's still movement out of this animal.
We have a live Poppy the puppy here, Verderame.
All right. Oh, there's movement. We have look at that. So cute.
Her debut. Yes. There she is.
Get me off this camera. Very cute. Hanging out in the FanSided office. Love it.
Hanging out. She's buddies with Hill. She's buddies with Selke. She's doing 1s and 2s in Patrick's office.
Good.
I think she's doing a great job.
As well, he deserves.
Yeah,
that's fine. Well, so anything new with you the last couple of weeks, other than the fact you've been holding down the podcast?
No, the biggest and yeah. By the way, thank you to Matt Lombardo for jumping on.
Yes,
did a great job. And we love Matt, and Matt does a great job on his own podcast as well in the Stacking the Box Network. I'm trying to think.
Don't hurt yourself.
Let's see, Verderame. I've been playing a lot of tennis, and it's been a lot of losses lately. And
it's not good.
I got demoted from singles to doubles. I had to watch the guys play 1 and 2 singles this past week. They put me on the doubles court with Duan, and then me and Duan got smoked at doubles. So this is it's going the wrong way here, which is why I think I might have to adjourn and take a week off here and go back to tennis camp with my guy Bill Perlmutter up in northern Michigan. So we're looking at some trips here for myself because I need to get my own reset going on. And I guess the most exciting thing is I have got the plane ticket ready to go. Multiple plane tickets, as I am a Southwest credit card holder, so you can book these things and pick and choose. But I'm definitely going to the first week of the U.S. Open, the end of August. So
nice.
I will be spending some New York time myself.
I hope you get another thing that the Midwest just decides not to get: a slice of pizza. And not the whole damn pie.
There's lots of slices available.
That's bullshit. There are not. It drives me crazy. I live in a city of 150,000 people. There's one place that does pizza by the slice. It's a gas station.
Yeah,
you live
in Rockford. It's one of the worst cities in all of America.
Hey,
what do you expect? No.
Hey, go to hell. Rockford's fine. I will defend. And I'm not even from Rockford. I don't give a crap. You can crap on all you want. Look,
I'm not saying it. If you
even in
Google,
Chicago, though, not a whole lot of pizza. You can't go to Lou Malnati's and just get a slice.
that's true. You can't.
It's ridiculous. You
I-
can't go to Giordano's and get a slice. And by the way, out on
That's
the
not
East
true.
Coast,
You can go to Giordano's and get a slice, especially the one on Rush. You can do that. Don't lie to these people. That'd be wrong.
well, that's news to me. That is news to me. But on the
Worst
East Coast,
cities in America.
you can get all kinds. You get taco pizza. You can get all kinds of different kinds of. You can get all different types. You come out here and it's like, oh, you like a pizza? Here it is. It's lasagna and it's an entire pie and it's $27. So when you go to New York, get yourself a slice, get yourself a $9 bottle of water, and relax and enjoy the tennis.
Yes, I'm gonna have lots of slices, and I'm gonna go to eat get my chocolate chip cookie at Levain's Bakery, and I'm gonna have my cheeseburger at JG Mellon's, and I'm gonna get a bagel in a million different places. New York's the greatest, but a nice slice or a big pie of Chicago pizza is most definitely better. But I love them both, so there's nothing. You'll never get me to dog on the slice of pizza, especially bought in the New York area. I'm looking for the rankings here as we're closing up here on Rockford. If it does make the top 50 worst cities in America, you're not in the top. We're down to the 28, which is now 27 is Albany, Georgia. 26 College Park, Georgia.
Georgia's really populating that list. Something fierce.
Robstown, Texas is 24. A couple places in Hawaii have made the list here. Here's some place in Louisiana, Firebaugh, California, Benton Harbor, Michigan, where you're surviving. You're Detroit, Michigan is 18.
Ooh, that hurts. All these other ones are like real small cities. And then
East St. Louis is not Rockford, but there's in Illinois. We just passed by Flint, Michigan was 11. You might survive this, Verderame.
this area of the country is getting a lot of attention, though. Gotta tell you.
Yeah. Well, so Alabama's all over the place here. A lot of places in Hawaii. California City, California, Florida City, Florida, and Mendota, California. Rockford is not in the top 50 worst cities.
Okay.
I apologize to Rockford
Thank
and
you.
everybody else who lives in Rockford and to all the fine people at Beefaroo.
Rockford's actually like, look, I'll say this. There are parts of Rockford that are not doing great. Okay. But I got to tell you, man, I actually really enjoy living in Rockford. I really do.
Hey,
I really do.
no, listen, I've told you many times. I had a roommate for 5 years who grew up in Rockford. She loves Rockford, Illinois.
I wouldn't go that far. I enjoy it.
Well, I'm just telling you, she loved it.
All right. Enough about Rockford. Nobody
yeah.
cares. Look, I enjoy it, but I also can understand why people would have mean things to say. But I'll defend Rockford, Illinois, where I did not grow up, but where I now live.
Thank you for listening to Stacking the Box. On that note, liking, subscribing, rating. We love all of you, and we will see you next week. This podcast is brought to you by FanSided. Join our community of over 300 sites from sports to pop culture and everything in between.